Welcome into Always the Jags, your number one podcast for all things Jacksonville, all things Jaguars, all things Duval. Well, it's time to look at the draft grades. I kind of waited to do this one because part of me is like, what the heck, James? Like it was a draft that probably most Jaguars fans simply did not see coming. Um and there's been a lot of chatter around the league that this is the worst draft in the NFL this year. Kind of hard to deny that. I mean, I feel like I couldn't even say, like, it's hard for me to defend it or be like, this was not one of the worst drafts in the NFL. Because almost every player, I think that there's someone better that we could have gotten. But they have a James Gladstone and Liam Coen obviously have a very specific vision for who's going to fit their scheme, and they were not interested in going away from that. The only question is now, will it work? And I hope I'm wrong. There's been plenty of times where I have wanted the Jaguars to take certain players, and we got them, and they ended up being complete busts for us. Andre Cisco didn't work out long term. Walker Little looks like he's not really going to work out long term. Those are both guys that I really wanted in that draft. Javon Foster isn't even on the roster anymore, and he was a guy that I thought was a great pickup in the fourth round. Um, so there's plenty of times where I am very wrong. I'm not a football scout at all. For the narrative that this is like arrogant, I don't really like someone like kind of explain that, like, well, you have this consensus board, and when you completely go against it, it's kind of arrogant because you're saying that I'm right and everybody else is wrong. And it's like, no, I mean, like that would be like saying if you're dating someone and you pick somebody that has never had a boyfriend or a girlfriend, you're saying that everybody else is wrong because nobody has tried to be with this person except for you. Like when you're picking players for your team as a franchise, not anyone else's team, your team, there's no such thing as arrogant. There's no such, like, you're doing whatever you think is best for your team. And it doesn't have to be, I think the rest of you guys are wrong on the consensus. It's could be as simple as the consensus pick doesn't fit our scheme, but this guy does fit our scheme. Now that's what I hope it is, right? That's what I hope it is. And that's the only thing that would make sense. And again, that's not arrogant to know what your scheme is and know who's going to fit it. So that narrative itself can kind of be like, you know, shot in the head or whatever. But I guess let's dive into the draft and just see our grades on it. And I'll do another episode with some of my buddies. And we'll kind of talk about it all together, compare with the Bills and the Saints as well. But let's just knock it out. So at pick number 56, obviously this is the big shakeup one. We have Nate Boerkircher, tight end. This one I gave it a C minus. I tried, honestly, like in my heart it feels worse, but I tried to give some grace for two reasons. I think we would have taken Gabe Jucas, uh, the edge player, and we got sniped by the Patriots heavily. Literally, I was like, the Chargers are on the clock. Their pick is in. I know it's not an edge guy because they already got Akeem Mesidor. So Jaguars are up next, and we're just going to comfortably take Gabe Jucas, who was the last of those, like, of the second wave of edge. Like, you had the first round edge players from Dave Bailey, Arvell Reese, and then there was a run that started with TJ Parker and probably started with Kendrick Falk by the Titans, but there was a run on those edge players, and the Bills and Bengals, Chiefs started a huge run on edge players, and Gabe Jucas was like the last guy in that crop. After that, the fall off was huge. And the Patriots saw that and knew that might be looking to get a pass rusher, and they wanted to make sure they didn't miss out on one, and so they sniped us. Um, and moved up right before us and traded with the Chargers. I didn't. I guess when the pick was in for the Chargers, it could still mean that they could still make a move. I didn't really know that. But yeah, so that was who I wish would have fallen to us and would have taken. I would love to see this draft if that didn't happen, right? Now, that being said, if he was on the board, we still might have taken Boerkircher. I don't know. I don't know if he was our third round pick and we just decided to take him instead. I think we should have taken Keyron Crawford. Um, that probably would have been seen as a reach too. Not as much as Boerkircher, who we took 100 rounds before he was projected. And that's kind of like my counter argument against like drafting for your scheme, because like you don't have to just ignore the consensus. Like even if you do your board and your consensus on these guys is who's going to fit your scheme, then I would look at the consensus just to get an approximation of where they're going to be, right? And if you look and you notice like, oh wow, all these guys that I like in my scheme are out of the top 100. They're all going to be in the back half of the draft. Then I would do one of two things: move back and get more picks, or just take a flyer. Like, just pick, like, who's the number 56? Like, literally, you just take best player available. Or, like, who's the number 56 prospect, or who's the best prospect that's on the board. I don't care what position he plays. I don't care if we've never heard of him or talked to him. I'll just take him. Because apparently there's talent there, right? Because people are saying that there's a lot of talent there. And I can still go get my guy in 100 picks later. Like, you didn't have to just, well, nope, this is my guy and I can't take anyone else. Like, take some random player and then take Boerkircher in the hundreds when he was going to be there. That's why you look at consensus, to know when the player is going to be there, and then you get better value for your picks because you can get your guy and another guy who might have talent, who might be able to fit your scheme, or the player might be able to adapt to fit the scheme. You know what I mean? That's the part that, as Jaguars fans, we're not really getting. Number 81. Yeah, so Nate Boerkircher for me gets a C minus. He's a blocking tight end. He's probably like, my tight end was Dalen Bentley. That's the guy that I think we should have gotten. And I think he's probably a better blocker than Dalen Bentley. And then the guy that we picked a little bit later, I think is a better receiver. I think I still would have preferred to get a guy, but I think Boerkircher, I think he can block in the pass game as well. And so they kind of viewed him as like a sixth offensive lineman. But again, if the consensus is he's the number 164th prospect, then I'm just going to trade back and get more picks and target him later. It doesn't mean I'm not going to go get my guy. It just means, well, I know no one else wants him, so I'm just going to target him later and just take a flyer on someone random, like Keyron Crawford or Romello Height. Number 81, Albert Regis. I got to give this one a D. I'm sorry. This is the one I wish and I was hoping that Romello Height or Keyron Crawford might fall to us here. Didn't end up happening. But, like, we already have the number one run defense in the NFL. And then we took a guy who the only thing he can do is stop the run because he doesn't offer you much in pass rush. And I guess you could argue it's a potential replacement for Devon Hamilton. But again, I don't even I can't even necessarily say like, well, this is just best player on the board, because the guy I would have taken, Grayson Halton, I think is just as good, just in a different way, right? Like Grayson Halton is one of the few like designated defensive tackle pass rushers. His pass rush, and it's kind of funny because he's like the opposite of Albert Regis. Like his pass rush grade is in the 80s, and his run defense is in the 60s. And Albert Regis is the opposite. Now I get it, Anthony Campanile, everything goes off of stopping the run, right, in his scheme. He likes being able to stop the run. He wants to make sure you can stop the run. So you got to be able to stop the run. But in obvious pass rushing situations, third and long, like you stop the run so you can get in those situations. You also need guys who can take advantage of those. And if the idea was like, we want both kinds of players, kind of like with the Nate Boerkircher getting a blocking tight end and a passing tight end, and like we want a run stuffing defensive tackle to potentially replace or compete with Devon Hamilton, it's like you could have taken Grayson Halton. You could have taken them both. Like if you took Grayson Halton here and then Albert Regis after or a little bit later, or Grayson Halton made it to 107. So if you had taken him at 100, then the Albert Regis pick looks a lot better in my opinion. But I don't think I can't. I gotta give it a D because it felt like what we were lacking is a pass rushing, pocket impactful defensive tackle, and instead of improving that or picking someone who can improve that, we just doubled down on getting a guy that already does what we do best, and we just passed on it. And it either feels like they decided it wasn't a need, or just wasn't worth it, or we just rather be really good at this one thing. And it's like, sure, we can stop the run, but and we can't generate pressure. But yeah, we can stop the run, and it's like teams will take advantage of that if we can't get pressure. So we needed a designated pass rusher from defensive tackle and the edge position, and it feels like we didn't address either one. Now we move on to pick number 88, which is the undisputed best pick of the draft, most people's favorite pick of the draft, Emmanuel Pregnon. This one is an A plus. I mean, at number 88, he's never been in my mock drafts because he never makes it this far, right? So, getting him, who's a future starter at guard, projects to be. Some people project him as a starter this year. Fortunately, he's on a deep offensive line, so he can sit and wait. I mean, he's behind Wyatt Milam, who has the potential to start, and Ezra Cleveland and Patrick McCurry. And this is one of the reasons why I didn't really wish that we had restructured Patrick McCurry's deal, because I know we wanted to free up some cap space. But again, depending on how well Jonah Monheim plays and Robert Hainsey next season, we can probably release Cleveland, Hainsey, and McCurry, right? And a guy like Emmanuel Pregnon can step up to play guard. Same with Wyatt Milam, and same with Jonah Monheim. So that's how I was kind of against this. But this is easily our best pick of the entire night. And one thing I will say, if you swap Emmanuel Pregnon and Nate Boerkircher, especially after that run of tight ends started in the second round, which you could argue that we started, but the Texans had kind of taken Max Martin Klein, and the Rams, I think, took Max Clare, something like that. So like there was a tight end run that was starting right after that edge run. You could argue, like, had we taken like Boerkircher even at like 81 or 88, and Reggie's or Grayson Halton was at 88, and Pregnon was our 56 pick, the Boerkircher pick is probably a B, right? Like if he was number 88 overall, even if he was projected to go in the 60s, the 160s, there would have been like literally, I think 8 tight ends had just come off the board in that back half of the second round. Like a bunch of tight ends were starting to come off the board. And so I think that pick would have looked like, well, there was a run on tight ends, so they kind of got into it. And Pregnon still would have been an A because he was graded as a high second round, potentially first round pick. Like some people had him higher than Keelan Rutledge, who went in the first round to the Texans. So the pick would look a lot better had things fallen our way a little bit. Had you just swap these two picks? And because we end up with both players, right? So I gave a little bit of grace to the Nate Boerkircher pick as well, because it doesn't look so sudden and crazy if you simply swap Pregnon and Boerkircher. I still have the Reggie's pick graded the way I would, no matter where he was taken, just because we passed on Grayson Halton completely. Number 100, Jalen Husky, C minus. Again, I guess he's very versatile. He can play slot, inside, outside. And we'll probably need a safety to replace. We like doing a lot of 3 safety sets. And Eric Murray, don't know if he'll be around next year. He might become a cap casualty. Antonio Johnson, are they going to extend him? And then the only other guy we have on the roster beyond this year is Caleb Branshaw. So it makes sense to get some depth. And Anthony Campanelli does like 3 safety sets, so it's good to have that. It's just Jalen Kilgore was on the board. Kamari Ramsey was still on the board. A lot of higher graded safeties were still on the board. And again, if it's scheme fit, you got it. Like I would need Anthony Campanelli to show me exactly what Jalen Husky does that these other guys don't do that works in your scheme. Now, I don't know for it seems like another reach pick to me, but that's who we ended up going with. So Jalen Husky is a C minus. Like I said, I think if it was up to me, I would have taken Jalen Kilgore, and that would have been seen as great value because people had him in the second round, and Bills ended up getting him in the 5th. Next at 119, we took defensive end Wesley Williams. I had to give this one an F. I'm sorry. I trust in I trust in Gladstone. I trust in Coen. But we moved up 5 spots to get him, and we moved back 30 spots at the end of the 5th round. It's like if we were going to move up at any point in this draft, it should have been from 56 when the edge players started going. This was not a guy that and again, it was in the 4th round, so it's a little bit different too. But like, he would have been there at 124, and we didn't need to move up to get him, and we shouldn't have even picked him because to me, he's just a Trayvon Walker clone. He can set the edge really well in the run game, but he doesn't bring you that much in pass rush, which is exactly what we need. And I don't understand why we're doubling down on our strengths instead of addressing our weaknesses in our defensive front. And the guy I think we should have picked here is Kyle Lewis. He was still on the board, which was surprising because I thought he could go as high as 81 or 88. He was still on the board. He ends up going 138 to Miami. And now they have a dynamic linebacking duo in Jacob Rodriguez and Kyle Lewis. And, maybe the Jaguars felt like Kyle Lewis is, maybe they felt comfortable with Ventrell Miller. But Ventrell Miller struggles in coverage. He hasn't shown us much that he can cover the way that Kyle Lewis or some of these other guys can. And that's the part that concerns me because Kyle Lewis was great in coverage last year. Absolutely fantastic because he plays a lot of safety as well. He's probably one of the best coverage linebackers, if not the best one in this draft. And because you already have Ventrell Miller, you can use them interchangeably. If Ventrell Miller is better against the run, you swap them out and let Ventrell Miller play on obviously running plays. And then 3rd and long, you bring in Kyle Lewis because he's good in coverage, but also he'd be good on 1st down because he can stop those slant routes, those 1st and 5, 1st and 10, pick up 5 yards, get a nice slant. If he's in coverage, that's the opportunity for him to make a play on the ball. And Devin Lloyd was so good because he was good in coverage last year, and this would replace exactly what we would have been missing. But I guess they feel confident in Ventrell Miller. I don't know if I do because I saw him on the field. He was a heat-seeking missile in the run game, but he kind of got picked apart in the pass game. And that's the part that concerns me. So that's why this has got to be an F. I think Wesley Williams had like 4 sacks last year. 4 sacks. Which isn't terrible. But no, I don't even think he had 4 sacks. I think he had 2 sacks last year. This is an F. Because and even moving back 30 spots to move up 5 for this guy, it's an F. I'm sorry. I love what Gladstone did last year in nabbing 2 extra 3rd-round picks with the Lions. And with this draft, sometimes it's like, was it even worth it? Next, at 164, we picked Tanner Koizol. I got this one as a B-. He did have a lot of production as a tight end in college. Almost 850 yards, caught some touchdowns. He's definitely a pass-catching tight end. To me, it's like, I would rather, like, if we go back to the debate between the 2 positions, I would rather pick a run-stuffing defensive tackle and a pass-rushing defensive tackle than pick a, like, blocking tight end and then a catching tight end. Because I think it's more, like, you want more versatility from your tight end so that way the other team doesn't know if you're going to run or block, right? Because on offense, you're dictating the terms to the defense. So if we put Nate Boerkircher out there, it's like, oh, it's probably going to be run play because he doesn't really catch a lot of passes. And if you put Tanner Koizol out there, it's like, oh, it's probably going to be a passing play because Koizol is not known for blocking. But if we have a guy like Dalen Bentley who can do both, and he's probably better at blocking, but he can do both. He's proven he can do both. He had like 685 yards. Now it's like, oh, I don't really know if it's going to be a run or a pass. That's why Brenton Strange is so good and we did need tight end depth because when Brenton Strange went out, our run game fell off a cliff. And getting guys that can block is very important, and these guys block better than Johnny Mutt and Hunter Long. So I do think Nate Boerkircher was good from that perspective. But again, if I'm going to double up at a position, what would I rather have? When the offense always dictates the terms to the defense, and the situation that the offense is in is always going to dictate what type of defense that you're going to run. So again, 3rd and long. If I had just gotten a sack on 2nd down or something happened and it's 3rd and long, I know you're not going to run it. So I'm going to put in Grayson Halton and I'm going to put in Romello Height and let them pin their ears back and go after the quarterback. And I'm going to put in Kyle Lewis and play coverage, right? Like the situation is dictating the terms. But if it's 1st and 10 and I roll out there with Dalen Bentley and Brenton Strange, you don't know if it's a run or a pass. You don't. I could run it or I could pass it. and I could have them line up like they're going to block somebody, and then they get open now because they're no longer blocking anybody. Fake the handoff, things like that. You can create a lot more misdirection on offense when you have guys that are more versatile, tight ends who can block and catch. Defensively, it makes more sense to, like I said, if you're going to double up, okay, then yeah, pick a defensive tackle who can rush and pick one who can stop the run. So I would rather have taken Grayson Halton and Albert Regis and then taken Dalen Bentley over taking Boerkircher and Koizal and only taking Regis. If that makes any sense. So I still gave it a B minus because I do like his college production, but we'll see where he ends up playing out. Pick number 191. This is Josh Cameron. This pick I'll give an A to. Honestly, I think at one, again, I don't think we shouldn't have traded up for Wesley Williams. And if we had just stayed where we were at 166, that would have been the spot to take. You could have taken Koizal and Boerkircher right there. 166, 164 back to back. And then 191 came from us trading back. And so then we would have been picking at like 203 or something like that. Not exactly sure how it would have played out, but Josh Cameron, I mean, he's fine. He's fine. Not even fine. Like, Josh Cameron is the exact type of wide receiver that I wanted us to pick. My guy was CJ Daniels because he has the body type. But Josh Cameron has the body type as well, and I think he's a little bit more known for being a contested catch specialist. I just like CJ Daniels because he had 1,000-yard season under his belt. I don't think Josh Cameron has one. So CJ Daniels has shown that he can, put up high numbers before. But I think like Josh Cameron's specialty really is contested catches. And like I said, CJ Daniels has the body type for it, but I don't think he necessarily specializes. Like, he can do it. It's kind of like different though between the specialization. So being a tenacious blocker really helps as well. And so I really like the pick. I mean, to me, it's an A. Only reason why it's not like an A plus is because I'm still sour over trading back 30 spots to move up 5 for a defensive end who can't rush the passer. So, but we got Josh Cameron. And like I said, that's the only other A pick that you'll see in this mock draft. Hate to spoil it, but for these draft grades. Next, we have CJ Williams. This grade I'm going to give a B. I think he's a bit smaller than Josh Cameron. He's kind of more of an all-around wide receiver. The pick that I wish would have fallen to us was CJ Daniels because I would have loved to get them both. And there's a chance Josh Cameron could have went undrafted. So I think like if Daniels was on the board, you take him and you can hope that he goes undrafted or take him in one of the later picks. But either way, I would have loved to pick him up because imagine having two big-bodied receivers. And again, these are replacing Tim Patrick, right? But if we have two like red zone threats, like we get down to the 5-yard line and Trevor can go Josh Cameron on one side, CJ Daniels on the other, and I just got to put it up. You got to choose who to double team, and you can't double team them both, right? So I would have loved to have like two of those guys, and literally you only put them in jump ball situations. But either way, we ended up taking CJ Williams, the guy I think we should have picked. And again, I can even reflect on my own mock drafts and be like, most of the guys I liked, the fact that they fell all the way to the 7th round is maybe a sign that like other teams didn't have the same consensus on them or they didn't like them as much as I did. But at least they were on the board for some of these guys. Like here, we should have taken Landon Robinson. He was one of the few defensive tackles with legit pass rushing juice, and he ended up going to the Bengals. He's a guy that could have been in the rotation, sat a little bit. And I liked him too because if we had gotten Caleb Banks, I always said that he was a guy that could kind of give some insurance in case Banks isn't healthy. Or even looking at like back to the Albert Regis pick, looking at like Dominique Orange, like he grades out in the 70s against both the run and the pass, right? And Albert Regis is good against the run, but not the pass rush. And then Grayson Halton is good against pass rush and not the run. So, like, if you're not going to go for the pass rush guy, I prefer getting someone like Dominique Orange, who's at least a little more balanced in both ways. And we picked Regis over him, and the Vikings snatched up orange right after us, and they had already taken Caleb Banks. It's kind of like, I don't know. And I think other teams get annoyed too because when we pass on so many players that seem obvious picks, I think they like start calling it arrogant because it means that like other teams, like if you're a Packers fan, you're probably not happy that the Vikings got Caleb Banks and Dominique Orange, and we passed on Dominique Orange to take Albert Regis. Like I think you're much more comfortable with the Vikings having Albert Regis than Big Citrus. So I think that's why other teams get annoyed and stuff and call it all those whatever they call it. But still, it's our team, right? And we are picking the players that fit our scheme. Now I don't see it as much as other people, but you can't call it arrogant. That just doesn't make sense. Pick number 233, defensive end Zach Durfee. This is a D. He had more sacks than Wesley Williams. He had 4, right? You know who had more sacks than him? Max Llewellyn, who was on the board, and he's demonstrated a lot as a designated pass rusher. He could have even made the roster. Zach Durfee was like prospect number 670 something. He wasn't even on most people's boards. We could have taken him undrafted. We picked him instead. This is a D. Our last pick, 240, Parker Hughes. C. I mean, he's a linebacker. Needed some more linebacker depth. But we didn't need linebacker depth. We needed a coverage linebacker who could compete to start. This is not that. This is more depth. We already have Jack Kaiser back there. We got someone else back there. I can't remember who. And Dalen Bentley was still on the board. Even if you doubled up on the tight ends in the 5th round, I still would have rather had Dalen Bentley and just let the competition reign supreme. This entire draft, I ended up giving it like a C-. I trust in Gladstone. All these guys better be incredible fits to our scheme because not only does the rest of the NFL not really see it, your fans don't really see it. And again, their scheme could be way out. And I trust that Anthony Campanile, fortunately, Campanile and Coen have shown enough to be like, you got to give them some trust in what they do because they've shown that they know what they're doing, right? And that's all we can really do. Trust that they know what they're doing with their scheme and with the players that they requested, because we know these are guys that they wanted. And I guess we'll just have to see. So let me know your thoughts on the grades of these picks. Let me know with your thoughts. Do you think this draft was arrogant? How are you feeling about it? Like I said, I can only give it a C- based upon the information and evidence that I have. I hope to God I'm wrong, because again, even last year's draft was great. I still think that was a good draft. We got to see what Caleb Branshaw is. Travis Hunter, we know what he can be. I'm going to do another video on whether or not the Travis Hunter experience is over too, because that's a stupid narrative that's been floating around. And I think Wyatt Milam is a great backup potential starter. And everything else after that doesn't really matter because it was like 4th and 5th round picks. But yeah, this draft is a little bit tough, and especially like people say like it wasn't that great of a draft overall, and I can kind of agree with that. There wasn't a lot of like top end players, but there was a lot of players that could fill specific niches, and to me, we didn't take advantage of that, and I don't know why. So let me know your thoughts, and don't ever forget, it was always the Jags.